Well, I'll take this one. Why is pork bad for you? Well, that's easy. It's loaded with parasites. It's loaded with toxins. It's loaded with parasites that are resilient to even the highest of heat, so they don't die. They still get in you. It causes terrible swelling, allergies, closing of the throat, swelling of the eyes, causes your skin to break out in tremendous hives. It screws up your digestion, buries parasites in the linings of your intestines that can burrow right through. And after all of that, it creates fire. Because poof, you burn up in fire in hell when God throws you there for eating it.
Okay. So is parasites in pork really that dangerous, that bad for you? No, it isn't. But yes, there is known parasites that do tend to infect pork. It's called trichinella, causes the disease trichinosis. It's very rare in developed nations because pretty much everything he said about it is incorrect in that it is very effectively killed by heating. The way you get trichinella is by eating undercooked or raw pork. So don't do that. So here, how do you prevent getting trichinosis from eating pork? One, heat it and use a thermometer so that the internal temperature of the meat gets up to 165 degrees C. So actually, correction there, I meant to say 160 to 165 degrees Fahrenheit for the internal temperature of the pork. Some references say 160 degrees or 165 if you're eating game meat, because game meat also can have trichinella in it. But if you get it up to 165, you're pretty much covered. So yes, heat will kill the larvae of the trichinella. You can also kill them by freezing them. So if you're freezing your meat, you need to, first of all, it should be cut into 6-inch or thinner steaks or chunks. You don't want it to be too thick, then it won't freeze down to the middle. And you need to freeze it down to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, or I think that translates to around negative 10 or 15 degrees Celsius for 20 days, right? So if you freeze your pork for 20 days in a cold enough temperature, that will also kill the larvae. So those are the two ways to do it. But basically, if you cook your meat enough, if you cook it thoroughly, and if you want to be sure, you use a meat thermometer, get up to 160 to 65 degrees, you don't have to worry about it. And that's why trichinella is very rare, in the United States and other developed nations. Other things you want to do is be careful when you're handling raw meat, specifically raw pork. So don't, cut up your pork on a cutting board and then cut up your vegetables on the same cutting board, right? You always want to use a separate cutting board for the meat. You want to always clean everything, the counter, the cutting board, the knife, any instruments that you use very thoroughly to make sure there's no cross-contamination, right? So heat your meat, you can freeze it, be clean so you don't have cross-contamination, and you can safely eat pork without running any significant risk of getting any parasite, specifically trichinella. The other thing about God being angry at people for eating pork, I guess that depends on your particular religious beliefs, and I'm not going to comment on that.